after a mic check. So, hey, and speaking of being live, we are live now. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We are doing the recap of episode 5 of Survivor Boston. Season 4, the
Palamedes?
Palamedes? The Palamedes. I feel like, in the spirit of Haley, we are going, Hallie, to do one in a different pronunciation every single time. So
Perfect.
And I already forgot what I said. So we are joined this evening by our recent knocked out person, Austin. First of all, Austin, welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Kind of unfortunate that we do get to see you here so early, especially in some other people's draft picks. I had you pretty solid where you ended up. Unfortunately, I thought you were a great player, but we were just getting to hear about Phoebe. Phoebe, welcome.
Hi.
Phoebe is one of the producers here at Survivor Boston, Season 4 and Season 3, which we just found out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You rated Austin pretty high, so...
Yeah, he was very high on my winners list, on my draft, but alas, unfortunate.
Brings us together here. And then finally, rounding us out, also placing Austin pretty high on the draft list here, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, Austin, because, I placed you high because pregame connections in these games often get you really far. It didn't work out this time. But especially want to talk to you because we heard a lot about you from other people, but we didn't hear from you that much in this game. So hopefully you can shed some light on what was going on.
For sure. Hopefully I can.
Before we shed some light a little bit on the people viewing at home, Austin, I'm going to kick you just for a moment or two so we can have a nice little thumbnail and not have any spoilers. So we're going to back up. We have a little bit of spoiler here. So we are joined by our latest person voted out of Survivor Boston once again to return, Austin. Hey.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Sorry for everyone at home that just got spoiled. Great episode, so make sure you still watch, and we're going to talk all about Austin's journey with us today. So, Austin, how are you feeling have you been keeping up with the episodes at all?
Yeah, so I've been watching every week, actually. Pretty much, I get home from work, and I'm like, all right, it's time to watch an episode and see what transpired. Because I think there's a lot of unanswered questions that pretty much anyone has when they're playing the game. And so it was really fun to be able to watch what was happening. But yeah.
It's super fun to watch here too. I tune in every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Tons of comments too. And for everyone watching too, they're great comments. Some other live reality games have a few spoilers from people that throw stuff out here and there, but I feel like Survivor Boston, your fan base is great at keeping people attuned to what's going on and have really insightful feedback. So
yeah, some people will write whole paragraphs in the comment sections. It's really impressive that people are that dedicated and tuned in. And it's always a great thing to see, for sure.
Before we get too far, do you want to throw out our Facebook page, facebook.com/live reality games for all these great events, college style Survivor games. We have a new one that just got released to a Big Brother based in Colorado, which I'm learning that pronunciation as well. Colorado, as opposed to Colorado, which I thought it totally was. So let's start out with Austin. How did you find out about Survivor Boston?
So I've had a few friends, crazy. I talked about this in my Meet the Cast video of knowing a lot of people, but it was through friends that I found out about it. I was pretty good friends with Isabella and Spencer from season 2, and then Roz from season 3, who, especially Isabella was very good at getting people to try out for Survivor. And so I heard about it from her, and it was one of those things where I was like, okay, listen, it's my last semester in Boston because I was doing the school's LA program the following semester. So I was like, it is, let me just do it. It'll be fun. And I've never seen Survivor before. Still haven't. Well, I've watched one episode since. And then besides watching Survivor Boston, but I had never seen it before, so I was like, let's just see what happens. And so that's how I heard about it, and I went out for it and everything.
So I'm curious then, you watched one episode. What was the one episode of Survivor you watched?
Okay, so the one episode of Survivor I've watched was like a month ago. Like before playing Survivor Boston, I still had never seen. I knew what Survivor was, but like literally had no idea like how anything worked. But the one episode I did watch, it's because they just dropped like 2 random seasons on Netflix, and I don't remember the name, but it's the one. I watched the first episode of the one with the 3 tribes, like the Brains, the Bronze, and the Beauties, like that one. Of course, I'm like really like I just went on Wikipedia and I was like, what happened in the season? But I did watch that one, and it was very interesting to like actually see the show for once.
That one's worth watching the whole way through.
Okay, good.
Austin, did you have what was your strategy coming in? Do you have any strategy because without having that framework?
So I think it was one of those things where I was like, I know that I'm loud, so I know that I need to like not be so loud. And yet, when I watched that first episode and both team captains wanted to pick me first, I was like, damn it, you did not do your job of staying under the radar. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of went in and I was like, I honestly kind of wanted it to be a little bit of a numbers game for me, because I was like, when I walked into that room and I looked around and I literally knew like half the cast, I was like, maybe I can just use this to my advantage and like not worry too much about it. And I'll never forget, like I walked into the room for that first episode and I saw Jess, and they looked at me, and then I saw them turn to like other people and they were like, Austin Bailey is playing, and that's when I was like, damn it. I was like, I'm already, people are already on.
Okay, I want to get to who you know, but first I really want to ask, you walked in with Swetha.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm gonna lay it down right here, guys, for everyone to see. Swetha and I have been dying laughing at every episode so far because people are so stuck on us walking in together and being allies. And Swetha and I are great friends. We're literally from like one town over from each other. We met freshman year. And so that's like, we're great friends. And I remember seeing her outside, like doing a little camera interview, and I was like, oh my God, you're playing? Oh my God, let's walk in together. And that was it. Like we literally did not meet together. We did not meet once the entire game, like at all. At all. And so we just happened to walk in together and we knew each other and we were friends. So it was one of those things where like, if we ended up on the same tribe at the beginning, or if we like came together and merged later, like obviously something would have come about. But I mean, both of us like didn't know how to play Survivor, so we both like we're just gonna do our own thing on our own. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even think to like cross tribes and talk to someone. So Swetha and I'm gonna lay it down right here. We actually were never working together from the beginning.
It really haunted you throughout your entire game, though, because it was brought up every episode.
I literally cannot believe it. Like, I literally was like, okay, take a shot every time someone says Swetha and Austin, and like, you will black out in like 5 minutes. Like, I was shocked.
So who all did you know then from the rest of the cast?
Okay, so I had a few like friends on the cast, and then I also had people that I like that were friends of friends. And this is, I think, just like being a senior walking in, like obviously you've had 4 years to get to know people and through all the different orgs. And Emerson's a very small school, so you get to know a lot of people and at least like a lot of faces and names. So I was friends with Maddie, Swetha, Jackie, Zach. And then I was friendly with Marlon, and I were in the same a cappella group. No one ever knew that. Finn, I knew who Jess was. I knew who Hallie was. I'm trying to think of who else played that I. Other than that, Maddie? I don't really. Yeah, I said Maddie. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, like I don't really think I knew anyone else pretty closely. Like the Carly, Zach, or Carly, Max, like Madison, Anthony, like I didn't really know them going into the game. But pretty much everyone else, like I had met. And I remember, I think I met Brady like early on because Brady was a freshman in the building that Jackie and I were RAs in. But it was one of those things where it was like in passing, like probably at like a floor event or something, and I didn't really think anything of it. But yeah, definitely a lot of familiar faces in the room when I walked in.
Now, Phoebe, does that come into consideration when you, as production, are like casting?
For sure.
Was Austin pretty well known that he was going to be so well known in this?
So I'm trying to think how we definitely when we were deciding who we were casting, we didn't want too many people that are too close friends because then it's an automatic alliance and kind of a disadvantage. But I think Austin was probably one of the people where we were like, he's probably going to be the most connected, but we knew that you had like such potential in the game and you could be such a good player that like that surpassed any like advantage he might have in knowing people. And as we know, obviously it's not always an advantage to know to know a lot of people. So but that is definitely something we had to consider a lot while casting, because Emerson is such a small school and it really is like a very unique environment to be playing this game in, because it's such a small campus as well. You can see each other everywhere. So we really, really had to consider things like that for sure when casting.
Well, I think you made the right choice, Austin. You were a pleasure to watch. You were amazing at the super physical challenges, but you still had a backbone for the strategic sense of the game without even knowing how to play the game. So
thank you.
Yeah, so early on, you were one of the people who kind of got flipped around in your tribes. Like, what was going through your head when you had the early swap?
So and here's the thing, like when I got picked first by Anna, I thought that it might have been a possibility because I remember having a conversation with Anna, like when we had to first walk into the room, just like introducing myself, saying hi. And so then when we had our tribe and it was like me, Maddie, Sweta, Zach, I was like, this is a little too good to be true. And I was like so excited, but I was like, oh, like nothing's gonna happen now. Like we're just gonna start. And so then when they offered the two team captains to switch, I was like, yeah, there's definitely a high chance that I'm gonna be one of those people that's pulled over. And so I braced myself, and I remember when Madison read my name out, I was like inside, I kind of was like, damn it. Like, because I feel like on my like first tribe, I had already kind of figured out like, okay, these are the people that I'm going to try to align myself with. And these are the people, and I felt safe. And so when I got switched, I was like, damn it. And I remember like, I didn't want to show it too much of my face because I didn't want to show like the other tribe, like, oh, like, I don't really want to be on this team. But I honestly am happy that I ended up going to that tribe because I did meet a lot of really great people and like became a lot more friendly with people that I didn't think I would have. Like I think so fondly of Jess, and I think if we had remained on that old tribe together, I feel like I would have been more focused on like Maddie and Sweta and talking to them rather than making like a new friend in Jess.
Yeah, well, Madison, from what I remember, picked you because she wanted to work with you. And I think you had a lot of people wanting to work with you from early on, even though your name was also in a lot of people's mouths. But yeah, what was your take on that first round? I mean, you didn't have to go to tribal council, but what was that early part of the game like for you?
It was interesting because at the same time, like I was able, and then they put this in the episode, like I was able to talk to Maddie and kind of get the lowdown on what was happening on the other tribe. And I think I was able to kind of think about that and know what it would be like going to tribal, since obviously I literally never like knew what Survivor was before. Knew what it was, but didn't watch it. And so I think early on, I very much was like immediately kind of like Jackie and I stuck together. And I remember saying this, like Jackie and I were like, okay, obviously we've been RAs together for 2 years and like we're good friends. Like we're just gonna, we don't have to try to hide our alliance. And so I remember talking to Jackie a lot and then kind of picking, a few people to speak to. And I remember we had met up for that first challenge, like the morning of, and it was just like Anissa, Jackie, and I, because we all got there early and we were just having a conversation. And so I remember trying to like plant those seeds with Anissa. And, Anissa and I ended up actually talking a lot, but they didn't really put a lot of that into the episodes, which is totally fine. But yeah, so that was definitely like one of the people that I was trying to go towards. But it really was just kind of like feeling it out and seeing, the different pods that my tribe was going off into. And just, I was hoping that we could keep that momentum when we won the first challenge to just like continue winning. Cause I was like, I don't really want to think about like what will happen next. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I was curious. I'm glad you brought up Anissa too. You said in your exit, actually, when you got voted out, that you really built a relationship with Anissa and Jackie in your alliance, and we didn't really get that from Anissa from you. So it's interesting to see behind the scenes how much conversation we missed from viewers.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting because, and it was also really interesting I know the game that I played, and I honestly went in and I was like, I want to play an honest game. But apparently, even when I want to play an honest game, people were like, he's a snake and he's lying to us. And so it was interesting because I feel like I was having genuine conversations with Anissa, but then in her confessional, she was like, Austin's just someone that I take what he says with like a grain of salt, which honestly, like totally fair. I would probably think the same thing, but I was trying to be very honest and genuine. And so I was a little bummed out that we didn't get to see a lot of Anissa and I's like meetings, because we would meet like pretty much before every like tribal every week, at least like once or twice.
Wow.
Was this one of the storylines that unfortunately does have to get scrapped at one point, Phoebe, that you can't add everything? Because, of course, you have thousands of hours to put into, like, an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most.
Right.
It's just maybe something like that. Yeah.
So Jacob and Charlie are actually the people who are editing it and make the final decisions about storylines, etc. But yeah, I mean, in this particular case, although that would be great and like great to see that relationship forming between you, Austin and Nisa, like just because of the way that Austin's situation panned out, it just didn't make sense to necessarily include that. Just because it didn't end up coming to fruition about anything. So
she's more tied to Connected than I thought she was. I thought it was just her and Big H, but nope, she's making the rounds just like everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, just from watching the first 5 episodes, she's a good player. She's very smart.
So early on, you get this, your tribe splits into, or at least from what we see, it kind of splits into a 5 people versus 3, 5-person alliance, and then you and Jackie are kind of left on the outs there, and Brady is targeting you and talking to a lot of people. Were you nervous at your first tribal in that second episode?
Oh, 1000%. Absolutely. I was like, I honestly credit this to the fact that I literally got stitches after that first challenge. And I think that kind of saved me because I will say though, watching it back, like in the moment when I was playing, I was like, this is 100% the reason I didn't go home was because I had stitches and everyone felt bad for me. But then watching back, like you realize that Jess had kind of already wanted to make that decision like early on. But yeah, it was interesting because on our end, like I was so nervous about going home. And I remember talking to Jackie being like, I thought that there was like a whole like triple agent thing going on where I was like, I think Jess is telling me to vote for Brady so that then I feel safe and then I don't, worry about going home and then I get blindsided in the vote, like all that stuff. But we had kind of, a few of us on the sidelines had also kind of done our own experiment with Brady where like, I remember like Jackie and I like fed some information to Brady and then Brady immediately went to Anissa and then Anissa came to me and I was like, okay, so we were actually testing if he was going to go spill the beans and he did. And so then Anissa was like, okay, cool, I'm totally down. Like, let's go. Because we were like, oh, let's get out Anissa. And he's like, Anissa, they're going to vote for you. And we were like, okay, we actually were going to do that.
Oh my God.
But I was scared that I was going to go home 100%. And so I'm glad that there was like people making bigger moves than I was because that was my whole strategy was like, I know I'm a big personality and I was loud and, very talkative, but I was really trying to like go like fly under the radar, like game move wise. Like I didn't want to make any big power moves earlier because I didn't want to be like the ringleader, the ringmaster, and then have a target on my back.
Unfortunately, it looks like even though you didn't make all those moves, you still, had the power behind you. So they had to go for something.
Can we hear more about the stitches and?
Yeah, so technically that was the second challenge, by the way. We kind of skipped over the first ball throwing. It's okay. But that was the main one I wanted to get to as well. So it's official. You have recovered, right?
Oh yeah, 100. I mean, I still have like a scar, but it's fine.
Did the prayers help?
They 100% did. All the prayers that were given to me so much help. No, I mean it was really like a freak accident where I stood directly in front of Max, fully not thinking that Max would just like run at full speed and like into me. Like I really thought that I was going to be able to like get in his waist, that he would have to run around me, but he was like, "Nah, I'm not feeling that." And I remember like I think his shoulder or like his face or just his general head like had smacked into like my nose and my mouth, and so that first moment of shock when I was on the ground, I thought that like I broke my nose, and I thought that I knocked teeth out of me. Like that's how badly it felt. And I remember like crawling on the ground, like holding my mouth, and I was like, oh my god. And I like crawled over to production, and I was like, I think, am I missing any teeth? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well look. And like I had a massive gaping hole like on the inside of my mouth right here. And so I was like, oh my god. I was like, I can't believe I have to go to the ER right now for a survivor challenge. But we went to an urgent care instead, and they were like, yeah, we can stitch you up. And so it sucked, but I was just like, I remember I was very determined. I was like, I will not drop out. Like I will not quit the competition for this, because I will be so mad at myself if the second week I was like, I actually have to drop out because I was injured. And so I was like full on prepared to keep on playing, even though I was like on painkillers, like in that tribal, like fully. I was like, no, I'm here. I'm not
Wow.
Was this your first experience with stitches in general?
It was not. So
Okay.
I have had stitches in my head before. So not even the first time I've had them like in,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank God
That's
that
a story
urgent
for
care was
another.
closed.
Did
Oh
you
my
have
God.
a vendetta against Max after that?
So I remember saying in like a confessional, I was like, I'm gonna come for you, Max, but I'm happy that they didn't put that in, because like obviously it didn't. You know what I mean? Like it was like just like in that moment where I was like, F you, Max, like whatever. But it really was just one of those things where I was like, well, he's on the other tribe. There's not really anything I can do. Like if we were on the same tribe, like maybe I would have had a little vendetta, but like it really wasn't that big of a deal to me. It was just more of like, I think it was more of like me being mad at Brady for like wanting to get me out. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Isabella actually kind of grilled you on the bleachers about it too, and she was like, "Do you hold anything against them?" No. So.
I know. I knew she was gonna try to grill me and like pull something out of me, and I was like, I'm not giving you what you want.
But then, so the next challenge, then the blindfold challenge, you and your team kind of scramble away. Like you mentioned, it was nobody's fault, or nobody had a clear like cut. I think this was the next challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was really, honestly, it was like a bummer, but everything that I said was like what I meant. Like, I don't really think it was anyone's fault. Like, it was one of those things where as we were scattering, I was like blindfolded, and I was like, shit, we should have like stuck together. But because I remember I don't remember who at all, but like we were in the circle, we were all blindfolded, and someone was like, I remember someone bringing up like, should we hold hands? And then it was just like the ropes were off, and everyone was like, okay, go, go, go. And I mean, watching it was so funny. Like, I mean, what, Big H like running off like towards the sidewalk? I was like, oh my God. But yeah, and then just watching the other tribe like hold hands and just run all over there together. It was just, that was honestly not the best challenge to watch. But at the end of the day, like it really was no one's fault, and I think that Jess wasn't there, and I think that Jess being there would have helped. But also like you can't really know like how much that actually would have helped. And I felt like going into that week too, like tribal wise, I think I knew going into it, like I was like, I think Jess is in danger also just because they weren't there. And
I mean, based on not being there, it seems like Hallie or Carly should be next boot. So anyway, just based on what we've been hearing.
I know. And I said that in my last week, but
just to clarify, just to recap, you did beat Max. So Justin for Austin has been served. Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you, Jacob. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so at this point, like, when you lose your second challenge, and we saw that you scraped past the first one, but then you become a target again, and Jess initially defends you and then doesn't, and there seems to be a whole lot of mess there. What was your take on what was going on? And did you still trust Jess?
I always trusted. Okay, no, I'm thinking about it. I always wanted to work with Jess, and I felt like I wanted to be genuine 100% of the time. However, that first week, I was like, I know Jess is a power player, and I was a little worried that Jess would be feeding me information that just I wanted to hear, but still be gunning for me. But I remember us meeting the first week and being like, let's work together. Like, and I was 100% genuine in that, like 1,000%. And so going into that week though, I was like, I know that I was on the chopping block last week. Obviously I'm going to be in the chopping block this week. And so watching it was so interesting to see how Jess was still willing to defend me in their alliance, which like I appreciated so much, because like I would have done the same thing if I was in that situation. But it was one of those things where like Anissa had come to me towards the end of the week and was like, okay, actually Jess is going to go home. And I was like, oh, and I remember talking about this, like, I was like, I told Jess I would never vote for them. And Lisa was like, well, they're going to vote for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went in. But it was like, I was told in like 30 minutes before tribal, and I was like, okay, done. Like, I'll flip. But it was one of those things where sometimes I was like nervous that there's just too much going on, that like you can only do so much. And I was like, at the end of the day, if everyone on this tribe wants me out that badly, like they'll make it happen. And so I was just it was one of those things where I was like, oh, like I'm going to try my best, but I also don't want to be like unrealistic in that like I am endangered tonight. And so it was also really interesting seeing the episode and seeing the full conversation between Anthony, Big H, and Anissa, because obviously Anissa told me how that conversation went. But then literally in the next episode, Anthony was like, Austin orchestrated that vote. And then I'm so glad they showed the footage of him orchestrating the vote, because guys, I kid you not, for 2 years, I guarantee you Jess has thought that it was me that week. The entire time. No matter how much I was like, it wasn't me, like I swear, like I did not orchestrate that vote. Like it's been 2 years. And so watching that, I was like, oh my God, finally. I was like, justice for all.
Justice, yeah.
Like, it's just, I truly did not want to make any power moves that early. And so I would not have like orchestrated this whole flip, like all that stuff. Like, and I literally logistically, I was like, Hallie lives off campus. Like, why can't we just, and I remember seeing a comment that was like, okay, clearly there's one person out and it's Hallie, so why not just vote them out? And I was like, thank you, person who commented. That's what I was thinking. But it is just one of those things where sometimes you have to go with the flow, and like you're not going to cause a fuss about a plan that gets brought up just because then that might cause you danger down the line.
It really seems like that was the move to make, though, is to get rid of Hallie there, and it's really bad for your game to lose Jess there.
So bad. And I just remember being like, why? Like, watching everyone else in that tribe, I was like, oh my God. I was like, why is everyone so paranoid? Like, can you guys relax? Like, it really is not that deep. But it was so interesting seeing everyone like freak out about it and be like, this needs to, like, they need to go now because it is so dangerous. And I was like, I just feel like there were safer moves to have made. And, I don't think that they should have gone home as early as they did. And so it's just, that week was like a total mess, in my opinion.
I think everyone just watches Survivor a lot more than you, Austin. Everyone's paranoid.
Yeah,
okay?
probably.
Well, Austin, I think if you had gotten to Survivor Kagion a little sooner and watched the whole season, we see a player there, Tony, really he becomes a target and then he leans into it a lot. He becomes a larger than life target, and I think for you, that probably would have been your best path forward if you had just leaned into being a threat, started to kind of direct where people were voting, and you didn't have to be malicious about it, but if you're already out in front, you might as well make the situation better for yourself. And I think that was the missed opportunity that kind of kept happening. Is like you were trying to lay low, but you were never able to lay low.
I know. I remember having a confession, like a confessional right after, or I filmed something with Jackie like right after that tribal where Jess went home. And I was like, "What's up, guys? It's me back again. Survived another one." And I think that could have been an opportunity for me. And looking back, like I feel like I could have leaned into that a little more if that our tribe had stayed the same and gone to another tribal council. I feel like that would have been the week for me to finally like start making moves in the sense of, you don't have that many people left. And I knew that like Hallie, Anissa, Big H, and Anthony could be like a 4 against 2 with me and Jackie. And so I think that if we had been together again and had another tribal council, I think that really would have been a week where it was like it would have been Jackie and I really trying to like flip something on someone or something like that. But yeah, so there was definitely a lot of missed opportunity there. And I think maybe if I had fully watched the season that I started, Survivor Kagyan, then I would have, known a little better. But
Jacob is chiming in with some comments here, saying everyone's thinking that Austin Swayze are dangerous. So let's vote out Jess. And then a person that I was going to bring up, and maybe why you didn't go this direction, I don't know, but Carly's also here with us. Talking about Jacob, but I'm wondering, why couldn't you sway Carly over? If we're caught up with the current episode, we're just recapping now, and your final episode, of course, Austin. Was there no swaying Carly over? Like, she was clearly on the bottom. She received all these stray votes from nowhere.
I know. I think that was one thing that I would have done differently, where because I had gotten the lowdown on the tribe from Maddie, like, I think I went in being like, oh, like, Carly was almost like, it was, her name's been thrown out week after week. And so I think that for me, that was when I was trying to make more moves and be like, I can get maybe her tribe to vote her out finally, and kind of push targets away from, the people who came over to that tribe from Katai. But yeah, I think looking back on it, like that would have been way better to then bring, you know what I mean? And I mean, we watched Anthony do that with Carly and meet with her and be like, your name's been thrown out, but like, I'm trying to, have a vote go this certain way. And I think Finn made a very good point too, where he was like, Austin hasn't reached out to me. Like Austin hasn't spoken to me. And I mean, it was 2 years ago. So like, I don't really remember fully what happens that week, but I think I was just kind of like, I was like, damn it. You know what I mean? Like the tribal swap happens. And I think I was so preoccupied with being like, okay, Jackie and Anissa stayed together. And I am over here by myself with the 2 people from my tribe that do not trust, like that trust me the least. Like I was like, how in the world did I end up on a tribe with Anthony and Big H out of everyone from Katai? Because I was just like, they hate me the most. Like, and so I was like, damn it. And so I felt like there was going to be something happening there. And I mean, I could tell like right up, like, up until that vote. And I remember like, I had a feeling, but I wasn't entirely like, convinced that like it was going to be me. But like, I had that conversation with Maddie before tribal where I was like, are you lying to me? Because I could tell, like, I could see through Maddie, but she was like, no, don't worry. But then she ended up telling me later, you know what I mean? But like, so I had thoughts there for sure. And I think that week in general was a little messy for me, just because I was kind of overwhelmed with being like, okay, great. So I'm actually coming into a tribe with 2 people who don't like me and then 4 people who don't know me and haven't played with me. So
not really, because you're going with Swatha. Like Swatha knows who you are. You 2 are good friends even before the game. So really, she does know who you are. Right.
And so, I mean, that's the thing is like Swatha and I still didn't meet. Like we were friendly. And like, I remember we were texting about it, but like, it wasn't anything like super laid out because otherwise we would have met in person. But Maddie was really the person that I was like fully, had my confidence in, just talking about game because Maddie and I were meeting like early on and we were on different tribes. And so I knew that like depending on how like everything went down on that tribe that week, like I knew that at least Swatha, Maddie, and I would vote together if possible. Like I knew that's why I don't think I really put that much effort in, which like obviously looking back on like I should have, but I knew that when it came down to it, like the 3 of us, if we could, we would vote together.
And I think the boys brought it up last time, too, the last episode of the recap, that Maddie seems to be good with everyone right now. So I think that's a little bit different than what I read into in the initial cast assessment. So she's playing a lot stronger game than I thought. So
I know. She played a power move the first week and then was like, gonna.
Did you consider any other targets that round? If Carly wasn't working, did you consider flipping on Anthony or Big H, or just make yourself survive?
Honestly, going into that week, like I remember being like, oh, okay. Here's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought that it was going to be a little bit of an easier week for me because I thought that Swetha and Maddie could come to me and be like, hey, so who should, like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's going to be Anthony or Big H or whatever. And I thought that I was going to have an easy time swinging into Fatia and like, and I literally would have been like, oh yeah, I'll vote for Anthony or Big H. Like, I don't care. But I did meet with them out of good measure because I was like, well, we came over here together. So like, at least let's see what we're talking about here. But I don't think I've ever had a faker conversation in my life than that conversation. And you can see it on the camera. Like all three of us are being so fake that entire conversation. Because even when they were talking to me, I could tell that they were like completely suspicious of me the whole time. And I was just like, I know they don't trust me. So I'm really just talking to them like as like good measure. And, down the line, like I would have continued working with them, but also at the same time, like I was like, well, I'm on a tribe where like I have some friends kind of on one alliance. So, I can lean into that and really just be like, I'm an extra vote wherever you need it. But, Maddie and Swetha did really have a hard time like convincing Finn and Carly. And, it didn't really seem that way on the footage, but Maddie and Swetha told me like, they were like, Carly and Finn were like dead set on you. And like, there's nothing we could do because they were like, we have Big H and Anthony, like it's going to happen. And I mean, unless I like bluffed an idol or something, like, and like, created a shitstorm basically, I was like, okay, well then shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's not much I can do unless I found an idol, which I didn't. So.
Speaking of idols, you never really got a clue and
Nope.
And you didn't ever do a Temple of Risk. Why no Temple of Risks?
So I never did a Temple of Risk because I know that some of them were private, but some of them were not. And I was like, for me, I need to lay low. I don't want to be seen as someone who's always trying to risk it. And, people being like, oh, because this is exactly what happened to Brady the first week. Like people were like, Brady definitely has a clue to the idol or has an idol. Because he let it spill that he did the Temple of Risk and got the advantage. And then obviously it went, like everyone then knew about it on my tribe. And so especially after that week, like I was like, I don't want to do any Temple of Risks because I don't want a target on my back. But also I was like, I don't think any disadvantage is worth it. Like I was, and I think looking back on that, like obviously it would have been worth it for an idol, especially in my situation. But I just didn't feel like the risk was big enough to be worth like a disadvantage for me when I was already in danger literally every week that I played.
Do you think you could have held your own on the challenges for the Temple of Risk, the word scramble and the balance of the ball? I mean, you've been super strong in all the other comps, so.
Yeah, I think so. I think the word scramble, I kind of wish that I did that one. Because I think that I would have been good at it, but also that's more of like a mental game. The ball one, I think I could have done a good job at, but that one was also like Anthony and Anissa would have been there, which I feel like would have been worse for me because I feel like there would have been more like distrust, especially from Anthony, and especially if he knew that I like had won and gotten the advantage. Like he'd be like, Austin has the advantage.
Yeah, but they were there.
I know. Exactly.
But they were there, so they have no grounds to hold anything over you.
I know. It really was just me trying, like, I was like, I understand that. I felt like the conversations the conversations that I was having were, I feel like no matter what, there was always antagonist vibes coming from me, like to whoever I spoke to. And so I was like, that's enough, That's enough targeting on my back. I don't really need to do anything else here to make it worse.
All you say is, my name's been tossed out the last 2 tribal councils. I'm not, like, I have nothing to lose at this point. I might as well risk it for the biscuit and get some advantage, because my name keeps coming out of your mouth.
Well, listen, I've also I never saw Survivor before that, so I didn't know that was like what you should change in that scenario.
Oh, it's just so many missed opportunities. I was like, awesome.
Trust me, I know. I literally know. There were so many, and I remember I was gunning for it. I was like, I need to make it to merge, because then I think that I will have a great post-merge game. And that's because of all the connections and because of all the people I knew. And I felt like when everyone was finally together in one tribe, there's a lot more targets, in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I still would have been a target, but there's so would, so many of other people. And so I think that that's really what I was trying to do. Like, I was like, I just have to make it to merge. Like, that's all I really want to try to get there. And so once I got on, the new Fatia, I was like, well, like, I didn't feel the need really to like play as hard as I should have in that moment. And I don't think I expected Finn to be like so against me from the beginning. And I do wonder, like, if I had had a conversation with Finn, like right when I switched over, what would have happened. But I mean, but also like people are suspicious of Finn too. Like we've seen every week too. So it's just, it's a weird balance of like figuring out like, who do I want to talk to and align myself with, or like, who can I lay into? And yeah.
I think in this season, especially, everyone seems to have a very close knit with just a few people, and then everybody else is suspicious. Like, they don't want to leave their group very much. They're like, all right, here's my 3 people. 3 people, that's enough. Like, there's no big alliances, I guess you could say. There are multiple sub-alliances that are working together to form a bigger one, but in those bigger ones, there's a bunch of smaller ones at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like that was the thing, was like I felt like I had a solid alliance in Jackie, which like I did. And then I felt like Anissa was totally willing to like work with us too. But at the same time working with Big H and Anthony. And like that's great gameplay there. But I felt like that was a solid alliance that I had. And so when we pulled buffs, I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, damn it. And I was separated from the 2 of them, like not even one, both of them. And so I was like, okay, like here we go, but it's also interesting because like that's the tribe I was originally on, like that first week or that first like 30 minutes. And so I feel it truly is. It was like what goes around comes around. It's that kind of thing.
What was your take? What's your take on Jackie in the game? Because I feel like she's the most under-edited out of anybody left. And I mean, you were under-edited too, but we see even less of Jackie. So what is she doing in the game? What was your take when you were playing with her?
So Jackie and I watched the episode together like 2 weeks ago. We watched the tire challenge episode together, or the one before that. Jackie playing this game is so funny to me because Jackie really was like just chilling. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it was very, watching Jackie's game too, like for me, so smart of her to side with me too, because for our alliance, Jackie's name never came out of anyone's mouth once because it was all me. Like people were always targeting me. And so I was, and like, that both of us would be like, well, shit, like Austin might go home. But I think that she's honestly been playing a good game because she's been laying so low. Like she's really just like doing what people tell her to do. Like they're like, oh, we're going to vote this way. And she's like, cool, got it. It's honestly funny to me. Also just because I know Jackie like outside of the game. I'm like, of course, literally, of course.
Yeah, especially laying low is good in this season, I guess. They've had a lot of big players leave, especially yourself and Jess and Madison, even being the first boot. Like, I think it's a lot of louder people, you could say, and a lot more present people, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I remember while we were playing it, like, everyone was like, why is everyone so psycho on this cast? Like, literally, there was, just because every week, Was it blindside, blindside. And I remember going into mine, I was like, I don't want it to be a blindside, which thankfully it wasn't. Because even Maddie and Soita did end up telling me, which I really appreciate because that was more, I think, of a friend move more than anything, being like, we really tried our best, but like you don't deserve to go home in a blindside. And so for me, like, I just really went in and I was like, I know what you all are doing. Like, and would I have made the same move if I was not myself? 1000%. But, but at the same time, like, I was like, I know what you're doing. Like, I know here's the people who flipped on me. And I was like, I was also trying to like deflect onto other people. So I was like, Anthony's the one who orchestrated the Jess vote. And then Anthony's like, no, you did. And I was like, no, you did. And Anthony was like, no, you did.
Uh-oh.
But at the same time, like, I was like there's other people here that are being way shadier than I am. So I was like, I'm not stupid. And like, fine, you can vote me out. But like, I think that, I would have been a great addition to like really any post-merge alliance. And so that was, I think at the end of the day, like, I was kind of like, well, like, I get that you want to take out a big player, but, there's the whole thing of like trying to make sure that your post-merge game is as great as it can be, and just being paranoid. And so I feel like that, I fell into that a little bit of people being really paranoid and people being so worried about me, like, talking to all of these people, which like I literally clocked in my Meet the Cast video. I was like, I know that it's going to be you. I know that people are going to assume that I'm like talking to everyone, even though I'm not. But yeah, so it's one of those things where I was like, people were playing a wild game, and that's why like every week you have like this big personality going home, and like every week it's blindsided. Like I think Brady's was like the biggest blindside, just because especially like watching and having Brady like read to the camera when he voted, being like, Austin and Jackie don't know how to play this game. And then we're like sitting there, but yeah, like, I mean, but it was fun. Like, that's the thing. It was so fun.
Did you see that too from the production, like the behind the scenes, Phoebe, when you were watching this all orchestrate? You're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is going to be so good to see. This is,
yeah, for
what's
sure.
going to culminate at it. So
Right. I mean, especially like most of the time and I say we, but most of the time, like, I knew what was going on. I knew who was going to be going home, just from like gathering through interviews and stuff. But sometimes like Brady's thing, even though it was a blindside and we knew it was coming, like, it's still, it stings just as hard just to see his reaction and to see, even casting his vote, how determined he was and how sure he was that he was okay. I mean, it's good television right there. So came out pretty good on TV, but I do feel very bad for Brady though.
And we all felt so bad too. Like, I remember just being like, and like, I know I like said some like nasty shit to the camera, but I did feel really bad. Like, I was like, right. It stinks to also just be someone who like loves the game so much and just be like blindsided like that.
Right.
Yeah. I just think like imagine an entire season with Brady though.
I know.
A wild season.
Truly wild.
Or Austin, like seeing if you had made it farther, it would have been really cool to see you actually like spread your wings in the game. Like you were, cut short, and I feel like we never actually got to see you show your potential.
Yeah, I mean that's there's a lot of challenges that I feel like that have been on like past Survivor seasons, and if they came up again, like I was ready for. And like the tire challenge, I'm just happy I got to do that one because that one was literally so fun. Like it was like kind of crazy, like how it literally dragged people on the ground. But it was just such a fun challenge. And so I was really excited to like, especially moving in, going into a post-merge like season, being able to play for individual immunity and like seeing how determined I could have been to, play more physical games like that. So yeah, I mean, I think that there definitely is like there's a lot of what could have been. And I think that my post-merge game would probably have been stronger than my pre-merge game, but that's why I went home, like that. And that's totally fair.
And it took me a second to think of the tire game you were referring to, Steal the Bacon.
Oh, Steal the Bacon.
Steal the Bacon.
There's another one where players flip up a tire and reveal a color, but that's entirely different game. Steal the Bacon is what we're going for.
Steal the Bacon.
Yes.
Legendary.
Truly legendary.
Throughout these live reality games too, and Austin, you're saying you like all these physical challenges. There's a ton of games casting for next season. Of course, pandemic permitting.
Right.
Feel free to go over to Live Reality Games, LRG Casting, for all the latest and greatest applications out there. So on that subject, Austin, would you ever be willing to play like an actual Survivor instead of a college Survivor, or maybe more of a Big Brother kind of thing?
So actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like I am really bad at Survivor. Only because the whole social game that you have to play in Survivor, I think, is separate from the social game that you have to play in Big Brother. And I think that Big Brother would be so much more up my alley, because you're already all together. You know what I mean? So I think that, and I remember telling so many people this, like, afterwards, I was like, I think that I would be a better Big Brother player than I would be a Survivor player, just because of all of the, like, pre-merge stuff you have to do, and then the post, you know what I mean? And like when it's just all like one big group, I think that would have been better. And I think that socially I would play a better game. But you know, it is one of those things where like I had such a blast playing it, and you know, like and then I went off to LA, and then I graduated, and then it was over. And I think for all the people who are still in school, like it's fun to kind of watch this and still be in the same place and be on campus, and you know, be like remembering like, oh my God, that challenge was literally here like 2 years ago. But, you know, going forward, like I would be open to doing it, or, you know, doing like an org or something. Like I think there's a lot of hidden potential for me for reality games. So
yeah, I don't see you doing bad at Survivor at all. I think maybe a few hits along the way might be advantageous for the pre-merge, but once you hit merge, like, you're going to school those challenges. You're going to have those bonds that get you to the end, and you're going to make it to the end and have a great jury speech, and everyone's going to respect a strong game player like yourself. Had you gotten far in this season, that's probably how it could have been. So
what could have been?
Yeah, I would have loved to hear your jury speech.
Oh my God, me too. But you know, it's disappointing, but I also still had like such a blast. And you know, my goodbye speech, I guess, my exit speech, you know, it was very truthful. Like I did have a really great time playing, and everyone on the cast, like no matter, you know, if we tried to ham it up or be mean for the camera or whatever, like at the end of the day, like everyone was having a really good time playing together. And you know, it's really funny to see a lot of these like alliances behind the camera or that kind of thing like pop up now, and people being like, oh my God, I cannot believe you said that. So at the end of the day, like it truly was like so fun to play. And yeah, like I said, like I was like, if I had watched alliances better, like then maybe it would have been a different game. But it's one of those things where like people, especially this season, are so like set in like the people that they trust and the people that they're willing to kind of toss to the side. And it's definitely a very interesting season, like going forward.
I'm just surprised by how many people have these conceived notions, especially finding out you and Swetha finally setting it straight that you've never really had a conversation game-wise with her. So that it's so like surprising.
It's like we would literally see each other at the bar, but like we have so many other things to talk about than the game. And so it was just always funny, like, especially watching it back, being like, oh my God, I cannot believe how obsessed with us everyone was. Like, and I mean, that's the thing is like, us walking in together was like literally like dagger in the heart from day one. And I was just like, okay, it literally is not even that deep. Like, it's because also we were laughing because like, what if we just happened to walk in at the same time and weren't friends?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people are like, they walked in together, they're working together. And it's like, no, Paramount, and especially the Paramount Studios, that's a small space. And so, you know, you're walking through the hallway, you're bound to walk in at the same time as someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a good warning for any future Survivor Boston players. Don't walk in with anyone.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, and that's the thing is I think especially being someone who had like never seen Survivor before, like you really don't realize that like people are playing the game the second they walk into that room.
Mhm.
Like whereas like for myself and like for Swetha, like we were like, we're here for a good time. Like it's our first day. Hey everybody, like what's up? And then like the second you're like, well, they walked in together, so they're working together, so they need to go home. And you're like, Jesus Christ, like, are you okay?
It does matter so much, though. It does matter so much.
Yeah. And like looking, and I remember like Anthony telling me too, like, you know, like, oh, like I didn't really. This was like a year later. Like, was like, oh, like, yeah. Well, when you like came over to our tribe when Madison stole you, like, you had this like disappointed look on your face, and I couldn't trust you because of that, because I knew you didn't want to be on this team. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, like people are reading into things so hard in this game, and that just would have been great knowledge to know going into it, because you know it really is just one of those things where like I was like, I'm gonna play and I'm gonna see how it goes, but like there's all these little things that like you learn as you're playing that you're like, this would have helped a while ago for sure, but it alas it has not. But yeah, it is like it's a really great cast, and people are like everyone's really good at the game, and that's why like you're having all these people go home so early. Like, it's a crazy cast. It really is.
Now you're talking about people entering and starting to play the game. That happens in almost every single live reality game. The first 4 people to show up in a Big Brother house, the first 4 people to be in the limo ride for Sequester. Like you're gonna have a first 4 alliance or so. I think this happened in Nathan's season 2.
And the thing, okay, because here's the thing I learned, because that season of Big Brother Columbus was my 3rd time playing one of these games, and what I had learned from my previous times is, get there early, get there first, and you not only get more time to talk to people, you're usually included in some early alliance, you're not going to be the first target, because often the first target is the last person to walk in the room. So just, if you're going to play any game, get there early, be first to show up.
Like writing it down.
That was the best thing I had ever done for that game, was just show up first. It was intentional, and you know, I had gotten to be allies with somebody because they showed up second, and then you know the first 5. So like, do that. It makes such a huge difference. You know, in a real Big Brother and Survivor, that doesn't make a lick of difference, because everyone is spending a week in sequester before they start a game. But for these weekend-long games, or even a game like Survivor Boston, you make your first impression, and you're like, that game is already going.
I know.
Game of first impressions.
It really is, and it's crazy. And like I remember, I would show up to the tribals early, where we would like wait outside the room and everything, just because I feel like, especially with a cast of such like people on edge all the time, like there would be like last minute decisions that would happen like right outside the room, of people being like, okay, well actually, you know what's going to happen, right? And you're like, no, like what's going to happen? And then like you talk about it, and then you're like, okay, let's go in the bathroom like really quickly, like let's run in there. And so I just remember I always showed up early for tribals, but you're like totally right. Like it's like the people are playing it from literally the second they walk in, and so just getting in there early is like such good advice, which, you know, clearly I should have taken. Also, the advice is walk into the room alone.
But if you get there first, you know, no one can see you walk in with anyone.
Oh, another piece of advice too. My partner is a theater teacher. He says, Austin, please, no more stripes on TV. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. All right. Good to know. Good to know.
Good to know. See, we have a checklist, so we got that going.
Perfect.
I don't know. I kind of took away Nathan's like last question, if you would ever play again. But Phoebe, let's kick things off. Any final comments? Anything from production side that we did touch on? Like, there's so many mysteries I know we still have yet to uncover. But
yeah. I guess we kind of briefly talked about this way earlier, but we were just talking about how when you enter the room, like the game is starting right then. But I think something that makes Survivor Boston so unique is that the game starts 3 years ago when you joined Emerson and people start knowing who you are. You know, your reputation on campus per se is already with you when you go into the game. So even if people are just seeing you for the first time, they might know so much more about you through just seeing you around campus. And that's just such an interesting part of this specific game that's so different from regular Survivor, from other schools Survivor, because it's just such a small school that so much can go on without you even knowing about it. But yeah, there's some, I mean, obviously I'm not going to give anything away, but there's some good twists coming up. Some idols, I believe, yeah, there's still more idols to come. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away on accident.
No, we don't. So the next episode comes out Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Join for live comments. Speaking of comments, Charlie tuned in. Jacob was here as well. Anissa joined us right at the end.
Anissa, I love you.
Dustin, what do you think is going to happen next week? Who's in trouble?
At these. I'm going to go with the people that haven't been on time, haven't shown up 100%, haven't given what seems to be 100% of their dedication. So either Carly or Hallie on this one. So
I think Anna might be in trouble.
yeah, I think so too, but I didn't want to say it out loud.
I think Anna might be in trouble. I don't want her to be in trouble, but I think she might be in trouble this week. She's in the numbers at disadvantage big time, and between her and Zach, my money would be on her getting voted out.
Was like, oh, I put my soul into the fire spirit, and now I have like the storm spirit. So her soul was like taken away. I was like, oh, this is like so dramatic, but I think that's so Anna in general. But any last shout outs? Nathan, any last before like predictions or?
No, I think I've ranted enough for tonight.
Austin, last words with you before we sign off here. Any final thoughts about you shared such a great experience. I don't know. Thank you.
I think I definitely don't want to sound like like I basically like what Phoebe was saying, like your reputation very much preceded you on campus. And I think just being someone who was a tour guide, a resident assistant, like, all of these different things, like it very much did, I think, impact my game going into it. And that's just something I was aware of, but it was never something that I tried to be like super like, conceited about being like, oh, I'm like the big man, like whatever. And so I think that was just one of my like worries going in. But at the end of the day, like I had such a great time, like I said, and it's definitely a very interesting season, like going on out here, and like I still talk to a ton of people from the season too. So overall, it's just, I think Survivor Boston is very, very unique in the sense of like when you put everyone in this like microcosm of a small campus, like it does really make like good content, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. So yeah, basically my last comment, like I just wanted to echo kind of what Phoebe said, like Emerson is a very unique place, and therefore like Survivor Boston is very much like there's nothing like it. And so it's been a pleasure to like be a part of that, history and be a part of the Survivor Boston fam. So.
Aww.
Perfect.
I know.
Thank you, Survivor Boston, for joining our family too at Live Reality Games. So you've been amazing to watch for my personal experience. Phoebe, on your first production of Beacon Hill, I watched that. I know as our fellow correspondent Austin from Survivor Michigan raves about season 2, that has got to be one of his favorite ones. If
season
not
2, yeah.
Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was a good one.
And Austin, of course, thank you for being here with us tonight. Unfortunately, not under the best circumstances, of course. And then,
but I'm happy I was able to make my case.
Thanks for hanging out with us too and joining the family, not even just from Survivor Games, college games, but from Big Brother Club.
Yeah, well, and Austin, go play Big Brother. I think you would be great for it.
Sounds great. Signing up now.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Speaking of signing up for stuff, we are signing off for the night. So everyone have a fantastic night, and we'll see you Thursday on YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the recap on Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Till then, bye.
Bye.